Have you ever wondered how seafood gets to your dinner plate? 157 metric tons of seafood are eaten across the globe every year. Here in the US, 8.3 tons are eaten every year. And it can take days to weeks to get that seafood from the ocean to your dinner plate. An array of seafood can be eaten. There's many ways seafood can be enjoyed. It's eaten by itself, maybe a fancy pasta dish. Also, a big hit here in the US is sushi. This is why seafood supply chain is critical. And this is what I will be discussing today. If not processed correctly, it can be a hazard. It can go to waste. It could hurt individuals even if it wasn't packaged correctly or transported properly. If one part of the chain doesn't do their job, it disrupts the whole process. So it really takes a whole line of people and a whole good processes to make it happen. You might be asking, what is a supply chain? Well, according to Investopedia, it's a network of individuals and companies that are involved in creating a product or service, getting it to the consumer. So any business really that sells any tangible goods is in a supply chain. How do we get this product and create it and get it out to the customer or retailers that would sell our product that we made? So each product is similar but different. It's a different way to reach out to customers on which desired product they want. So I have researched the supply chain process, read many articles about what supply chain is and how it functions in getting seafood to your dinner plate. I personally love seafood, so I really am really interested in the topic. It's definitely one of my top favorite foods. And I'm also kind of curious. I want to know how it gets from the ocean to my dinner plate. So I will be discussing how supply chain works. It starts out with lobstermen and how they go into the ocean and catch the lobster. Second is the processing and knowing how it's cleaned and packaged. Third, transportation of seafood to business. So let's start talking about lobster harvesting and what it's compared to. Imagine a seafood supply chain. It's like compared to a relay race. There's every runner, you pass the baton to the product, you pass the product to the next runner. So it's critical for each runner to pass the baton to the next person and making sure it's a edible food. So in a seafood supply chain, each process has to be part to get the best food to the customer. So each process is really valuable. So first, imagine the first runner starting out with a baton. This first person that's the runner would be the lobsterman in the supply chain. This person is responsible for catching the seafood and getting it to shore. They want to get a head start to get the buyer ahead of the game. The more they can produce, the quicker the head start, the more they can make money for themselves. So second responsible for processing, second is responsible as processing the lobster. So seafood will be sent to processing facilities, cleaned, packaged, and sent to shipped out to restaurants. Third, this runner is the transporter. They make sure seafood is delivered promptly with no issues, making sure that the seafood is all frozen and that it was packaged correctly. The final runner is responsible for getting seafood to the customers, prepared so the customer can enjoy their meal. So each runner has an important part to play in winning the so-called race. If one falters and drops the baton, it can disrupt the whole process for everyone. As we previously mentioned, lobsters are caught in the ocean by lobstermen. Every lobsterman needs a permit, and it's called Federal Lobster Limited Access Permit, and it's made by that was sourced by the NOAA Fisheries. So it's only for catching lobster, and it's free. So there's different arrays of what kind of permit you can have to, like a commercial, you'll be able to put out more traps. So how they catch lobster is in a lobster pot. They put the dead fish in the pot, and lobster flick their antennules to find odor molecules in the water. So that's how they attract the lobster into the lobster pot. Well, to harvest the lobster, it has to be a certain size. So between 3¼ inches to 5 inches of body, abdomen. That's the length of which lobster can be kept at. So after harvesting, we have to process the lobster. I will be going over the certain criteria for harvesting lobster. So it gets sent to processing facilities held to certain standards by the GAA. Approved safety and quality criteria. So they make sure that this lobster is being processed correctly in the facilities, and they make sure all the plants are clean and the lobster humanely killed. So you were on the first slide, which was showing you how the lobster pots were in the water. Now we'll be transferring to slide 2, which is the processing of the lobster. So the lobster's it's humanely killed. They use a high pressure processing, and it helps get meat separated from the shell, and that makes it easier. So it's highly effective, and it saves time, and it makes it easier for them to shuck the meat. So high pressure processing weakens the muscle that is attached to the shell, and they use water to do this. They use salt water so that it can retain the taste of the lobster. After they shuck the meat from the shell, they mainly go after claws and tails. This is the best part of the lobster. This is what, it's known for. Lobster tails is what you get on your fine dining plate. Other parts that they don't use is, they do use is legs and knuckles. And they use this for minced meat. So salads, minced meat, you could do it in like a chip dip or something like that. But they make sure that they use the whole lobster. So after getting the meat shucked and packaged, it's highly perishable. So it's sensitive to temperature. So the frozen temp for lobster is 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And this makes sure that it's properly frozen and can be transported. They vacuum seal the lobster and freeze it, and they usually use nitrogen to freeze it, and it takes 18 minutes to freeze the lobster, and it helps preserve all the flavors. So in a tunnel freezer, they specifically use a tunnel freezer, and they use sub-zero nitrogen vapors, and it's pumped into a chamber according to the lobster from Maine. It's pumped into a chamber and instantly, within 18 minutes, freezes the lobster. So on my last point, I will be talking about how lobster meat is packaged and put into a truck for shipping. So if you want to switch to that third slide, it shows packaged lobster. So the trucks has freezers built in. You want to make sure the lobster is properly frozen and it ensures the quality of the meat. When it gets to the restaurant, they thaw out the meat, but they never freeze it again because bacteria would grow. So because there would be many wrong ways to transport meat, and companies and restaurants want to trace it, so they use an internetwork to see when customers and producers consumers interact. So it goes from fishermen, next it collects data from traders, and then data from exporters. Last, it collects the data to consumer it went to. When it's all collected, this information is called mother information, so you can see everything that goes down the line and where the lobster came from. This is all traced for global trade and quality assurance, and helps find out who's at fault if there was an event of recall or something for lobster meat. So finally, to conclude this presentation, I've talked about 3 main processes of getting lobster, from the ocean to restaurants. First, I talked about the process of harvesting the lobster. Second, I talked about how they are processed in processing facilities. And finally, how they are shipped and how orders are traced. Oh, here's all my notes here.